What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares to set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with. We're going to talk about life before prison, life in prison, and life out of prison. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that will help you knock down some of the prisons you've built up in your own mind. Folks, I've got with me today Corbin. We're going to make sure I say this right. There it goes. I messed it up.
Bosilejevac.
Bosilejevac. Corbin Bosilejevac. I actually walked over this with him before because I've always just called him Corbin. Bosilejevac, which is, I even phonetically spelled it out and it still didn't work. Bosilejevac. So Corbin, we're going to just go with Corbin, but I did get it right finally. Bosilejevac.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
Yeah. So I told Corbin before we got on here, I want to, and Corbin and I were together at Leavenworth, obviously, and Corbin has written a book. It's called On to the Next Thing. I've read his book. It's a very good book, but I wanted to read the last or the back cover because I kind of think it gives a good vibe of the story that he wrote and who he is and how honest and forthcoming he is about just putting it all out there. But it reads this. This is a true story about a man's struggle through a time in his life when choices led him astray. From college graduate and Fortune 1000 salesman to black market drug dealing, crime emerged as an everyday event. Illicit drugs and illegal commerce became profitable and daunting, while the danger of these activities began to creep closer and closer by the hour. With federal prison as the catalyst, there was a chance that he would not recover. Being a fearful time, the crippling anxiety overshadowed any hope that he had left, but his life was rebuilt with a new foundation. These changes did not come easily or quickly, but anything worthwhile never does. This is truly a story of redemption. On to the Next Thing is an exceptional read about not giving up on life, no matter how far you have fallen. Our individual journeys do not necessarily unfold as we planned, but it is our experiences that shape our time. These experiences during this time are his story. Corbin, I really am excited about talking with you today. I'm excited about your book. It's interesting. We've shared back and forth here the last few months. Your book is a few months ahead of my book, and we've kind of shared. You've given me some tips on things to think about, and just excited to have you as a guest, Corbin. Welcome.
Thank you, Brent. Welcome. It's good to be here. Thank you very much.
So you've been busy. Corbin, you've been back home, what, 3 years?
Right, about 3 years. Exactly. Yeah.
And this is an unusual thing. We've got a Mizzou Tiger talking to a Kansas Jayhawk. So this is how we were brought together.
Right.
Leavenworth brought the Tiger and the Jayhawk together. I was kind of living on your turf over there in Kansas. So
you were. We accepted you. We'll put it that way.
Well, Corbin, tell me, you were one of those guys that you kind of you did your thing. You had been other places. So I want to get into all that, but take me back to Corbin as a kid growing up, because I know you were into sports and you had normal parents and everything was kind of a cool town you were in. Just walk me through that.
Well, I grew up in a rural college town outside of Kansas City, and it was quintessential. You cruise the streets in your car, and you go to Sonic and get ice cream with girls, and you play high school football and all that sort of stuff. Go to dances, enjoy yourself, listen to music. And so it was great. My father was a doctor. My mother went to every sporting event for us. So I ended up going to KU, like you said. I didn't play any sports there. I played a lot of intramural sports, though, and I worked at the college newspaper. Enjoyed it. And then I liked the sales aspect of being in journalism. So when I got out of college, I worked for a tech company in Kansas City. We We sold internet services and software and things like that. So I was in outside sales, and I got real busy. I mean, worked hard and loved it. Made good money right out of college, what I thought it was good money, and just got real busy. And I was working with a group of guys, and we were all doing fantastic. And we go to, after the first year, we realized we were doing real well. So we go to happy hours, and we'd stay out and reward ourselves for our success. And then the happy hours got to be more and more and longer. And I guess over the course of several years of the success in the corporate world, we got into drugs a little bit, and the drugs escalated. We'd still go to work every day. We'd stay up late, still go to work every day. It didn't really affect us to that extent.
You were young, you could do that, I guess.
Yeah.
Party all night, get up and work the next day.
Work hard, play hard, you know, that mentality. And so one thing led to another. A lot of things led to this, me not working at that job anymore. But I got to the point where I had connections to get the drugs that kept us up. And instead of working at the job anymore, I just concentrated on the drug part of it. I had this thing in me where even growing up, where I always wanted to please people. I wanted everybody to like me. And I wanted, to be that dude, be very likable. And I was like that all the way through college. And in this sense, since finally, when I was able to get the drugs in the corporate world, they liked it, on the weekends. I was the guy, I helped them out, I helped them find their reward. And so
was it easy, Corbin, was it easy for you to get the hook up with the drugs, or was that one of the things that drew you to that? Was it a thing that you didn't have to think much about and you got a lot of reward out of by being the guy that had the drugs?
I wouldn't say it was easy at first. Just like anything else, you got to meet the right people, and it probably took years to finally get to the point where you get quantities. So I got to the point where on the weekends, sometimes we did drugs, sometimes we didn't, but if we wanted it, we wanted them. We didn't want to have to mess around. And so I got to the point, sometimes we couldn't get the drugs, and it was a disappointment. And I thought, if I just have the drugs on me, and then I'll be the guy that can please everybody again. So, and then so I ended up getting quantities of drugs, keeping it in my house. And when people wanted them, I would provide them. And it's very profitable. I mean, whether you've sold drugs or not, that there's a lot of money in it. And so years later, I ended up not working in the corporate world anymore and just concentrating on the drugs. And that didn't happen overnight.
Corbin, did that skew you? Did you lose interest in your work because you were drifting further into the drug trade?
Funny enough, no. I maybe didn't pay attention to work as much, but it didn't really hurt my productivity. Probably because I was young enough to be able to, go on a little bit of sleep or no sleep, but it wasn't necessarily affecting my work, as far as.
What age would you have been then?
Oh, mid to late 20s by the time I started getting into the drugs.
So
heavily.
I guess one of the things about that is you were doing well in your job, so you had dollars, and you could actually maybe support getting that sideline going, which if you probably weren't doing well in your work, you wouldn't have had the extra dollars to go and invest and do that.
Right. If you want to get quantities, you need thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to go get a good quantity. And then, but yeah, that's the case.
Did you feel like as you were getting deeper into that, were you dealing with more unsavory people, or was it everybody looked like you, acted like you, or how did that world work?
Oh, heck no. It was two different worlds. I would drive to the east side of Kansas City and deal with people that did not look like me. I was still wearing a suit with my tie loosened up after work, maybe slung my jacket over my shoulder. And they did not look like me. They looked like what you would imagine a drug dealer would look like.
Yeah.
Black, white, Mexican, it didn't matter, and that didn't happen overnight. It was choices over the course of many years, little small choices that happened that now that I look back, it was apparent, it was obvious. But at the time, you don't think about those little choices every day that you make and every week that just slowly lead you down a path to where you're paying less attention to work and then eventually just quit and then just start concentrating on transition into the black market business.
I think that's a good tip just in general, isn't it? If you don't pay attention to the small things, you can get off on the wrong path, and then all of a sudden it gets blurry on the other side and you don't even recognize that path, and you're off on this other place and it feels more familiar.
That's one of the things I concentrate a lot in my book because I want it to be an enlightening book to help people. And that's the subtitle of the book. It's a memoir on crime, choices, and change.
Right.
And the choices are a big part of that.
Yeah. So tell me, Corbin, when this starts happening and you start pretty much becoming a guy that people know, what? How did you feel? Did you feel like you were? Did you feel exhilarated? Did you start to get scared as things started to get bigger in that world? What were you feeling?
I would say all those things. If sometimes if you're scared, you're also exhilarated, and
Yeah.
you have anxiety and all those things. But
Yeah.
I lived down on the plaza. I drove a nice car, and I would go, as I drifted away from the corporate world and got into the black market world, I started dealing. I treated it like another corporate job, really, and then maybe that's
Yeah.
why I got quote successful at it because I had a route and I had people that I would use on that route, and it was like I was making sales calls almost. It was an interesting, and that's another thing I didn't even realize at the time. But as I look back at it, that's exactly what it was. I just replaced it.
Well, I know you had a girlfriend, because that's obviously in the book. Did she know what all was going on, or were you a kind of compartmentalized? That this is Corbin over here, and this is Corbin, the drug dealer here.
I certainly tried to keep it compartmentalized, but she knew, but I would lie. And so she, when you're lying to somebody, they're just skeptical of you all the time anyway. So that's basically what it was. She didn't want me to do what I was doing, whether it was doing the drugs or selling the drugs. She knew it was detrimental to my soul. So no, she didn't. But I lied a lot. So she was just always kept in the dark and didn't
Yeah.
believe me. Yeah.
When did you start feeling like it was or did you start feeling like things were getting out of control?
Several times, there were times where I owed people upwards of 70 or 80 grand, and that's in cash. That's not to a bank. That's in cash to people that come and get it from you one way or another. It's not like you file bankruptcy. And so there were times where it got up to that point, then I'd work my way back down. And every time I worked my way back down, I was like, okay, good. I'm at a point where I don't got to do that again. And then months would go by and I would just do it again. It's kind of a challenge. I saw it as a challenge to myself.
Yeah.
Let me go see if I can get somebody to front me $30,000 worth of drugs so I can try to sell them and again, please them.
Right. The whole pleasing thing came into,
Yeah.
You were pleasing a lot of people that were counting on you to supply them.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this. In your book, it reads like a movie script when things get crazy. Did you know that you were on the radar, that they were looking at you?
Not necessarily. It was a surprise when they showed up to my house that day and busted in my front door. I didn't exactly know, but you always kind of think, you're always worried, but I didn't know. I was not.
There wasn't like a tip or something that said, "Hey, these feds are looking at you over here. There's somebody kind of sneaky that's been keeping his eye on you," or any of those type things.
You always think stuff or hear stuff, but not specifically. No.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the night that it happened.
Okay, well, yeah, and this is what's exciting because this is like the first chapter of the book, and I did that on purpose because I thought I wanted it to read like a movie. And so it was a night where I was running the regular route around the plaza, and it got to be, I don't know, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and that's still fairly early in this sense. And so I got a call. I had to stop back home. I had to get a certain amount. I think I had to get some pills or something. I don't remember. And so I stopped back home to kind of drop money off in a safe so I wasn't carrying around a bunch of money, and then pick up a few other things that I could go and continue on my route. And so as I did so,
did you ever lose money, Corbin? I mean, carrying all that cash.
I found a lot of money in the washing machine. I'll put and I don't mean that as a laundering joke. I mean, like, I just found money, and I lost money. I lost drugs. I gave money away. I gave drugs. Yes, it was just
crazy.
Not very organized. Yeah,
right.
And so I parked my car in the neighbor's driveway because my house on the plaza did not actually have a driveway. So I used my neighbor's driveway all the time. She didn't care.
Well, for people who don't know Kansas City, the plaza is a very nice area of town. That's where all the nice things are in the plaza in the Kansas City area.
Right. And I was 2 blocks north of the plaza proper. It was right
Yeah.
there. And so pulled into the driveway, went inside, got busy doing what I'm dropping money off and getting some more drugs to go sell. And so within I had a second floor is where I kept everything. I had a camera system set up where I had cameras looking outside, some cameras looking in the house. I had a camera looking down the street because I was high anxiety all the time.
High anxiety, right?
And well, I happened to be sitting in front of my cameras, and I happened to see him burst with illumination, and I happened to see a van pull up, and I happened to see guys jumping out of the front, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is it!" And
Yeah.
I only had less than a minute to prepare myself. I wasn't surprised by them knocking the door down. So I had enough time to watch them run through the yard. So I kind of stuffed a phone in my pocket, stuffed some things away, and then within about 20 seconds, I jumped out the second story window that faced the front yard as they burst in the door right beneath that window. And so, and I landed, and I thought, holy crap, I landed. I didn't break anything. And then I just got up and ran. I should have ran the other way, but I happened to run towards a bunch of cars angled in at the head of the street. And there was agents kind of milling around up there, looking at each other, waiting for me to be brought out. And all of a sudden I'm running towards them, and I'm still running towards them, and they're not paying attention. I'm still running towards them, and they're not paying attention. I get within 10 feet of them before they even look up, and I kind of yell at them what's going on in my head, like, what the, type of thing. And they look surprised, and I look surprised, and
they had to have been really surprised, Corbin, that the guy they
Yeah.
were trying to get was running towards them.
Yeah. And I was yelling at them, and I was high on drugs, and they were just pissed and surprised. So, and my girlfriend happened to live 3 blocks away. So I ran directly towards her house, but not in a direct route, I should say, jumping over fences, going through backyards, going through a little doorway that led through another garage, all sorts of stuff. And this is all detailed in the whole first chapter. I'm kind of breezing through it, but it's
yeah, it's a pretty gripping story right off your book, right?
I remember it all, but I got away temporarily. It didn't last. I ended up in the hospital before I went to jail that night because they tackled me in her house. I finally got to my girlfriend's house. They tackled me in her house. They kicked in the door. They slammed me on the floor. She had just got out of the shower. She was crying on her knees. They had a gun to my head and a foot on my neck because they didn't know if I was armed. Can't blame them. I ran away,
Right.
And yeah, I ended up passing out, couldn't breathe or hyperventilated. And so I ended up in the hospital, but there's a lot of details in there that just makes it even more shocking.
Well, yeah. So your girlfriend obviously is in complete shock. I mean, somebody's busted down her door. You've got a gun to your head and you pass out. She doesn't even know if that's, if you're okay. You end up in the hospital, and then what's going through your head?
I'm thinking I'm screwed. And I'm thinking that hospital bed is going to be the last cushiony bed that I'm going to feel for a long time.
Yeah.
I thought maybe a year. I thought maybe I'd just go to jail right then and there for a year. That's basically what was in my head. But I knew I was screwed, and I was scared, and I was nervous, and I was pissed, and I was worried about money and worried about what was going to happen to all my stuff, and just worried about people, and if people or if anybody cared at all, just all the things. Yeah, it was the family, just disappointing that, all the, because nobody was aware of all this that was going on.
Right. So so you get from the hospital, where do you go? Where do they take you there after that?
They take me to the city jail, downtown Kansas City, and
Can't be a good place. I don't think any jails are.
No, it was the first time I'd really ever been in the jail. No, not, it was the first time. And I don't even know how to describe that to somebody, because it's just so depressing and deflating, and everything is just, all your energy is being sapped from you, and all your things are being taken from you, and all your just worries are compounding on you. And it's the craziest, worst feeling ever. And it doesn't go away. And it's not going to go away. It's just going to keep getting worse every time you go behind another locked door and another locked door, until you're in a small room by yourself, and you're thinking, and you're not told anything, and you're thinking, am I going to be here for 20 minutes or 20 days or what?
Yeah, don't you think that's one of the more, as far as torturing your mind, and obviously they do it on purpose, but you have no idea what the next step is. You have no information, and they make sure you don't have any information. So each step you take, nothing's told to you until somebody tells you what you need to do.
And that's all you get is that one more bit of information, not the whole
Right,
story ever.
right.
And you can't rest. You can't, you kind of, I was in maybe a holding cell for several hours, and there was 25 other guys in there, and it's busy and not big. And so I carved out a little corner but I was worried that, crap, am I in somebody else's corner? Like, I don't know
Yeah,
who real estate's at a premium in there. And
yeah.
so just the whole thing, you're just worried about not doing anything wrong to get yourself in a horrible situation.
How long do you stay in the county jail there, or the
I
city
was I
jail?
was only in that city jail less than 48 hours,
Okay.
uh, a little more than a day. I ended up getting out on some kind of. They ended up charging me pretty quick with a federal crime though, because they ended up finding a gun in my house and they found quantities of drugs. And so I was let out, and I kind of thought I was getting. I don't know. You don't know if you've never gone through it. I thought maybe I'm going to get off this, or maybe they're like, don't do it again, young man, and that's going to be it. But that's not it. That was just the beginning.
So the next step, did you go, now that you're out, they've released you, I guess you're thinking getting an attorney, trying to figure out what they have, how you're going to defend yourself. What was going through your head on that?
Yeah, I got an attorney pretty quick. Went and talked to him, and quickly he was like, "Well, we might be able to get you less than a decade in prison." Might,
Mm,
and I said, "What do you mean might? What do you mean decade?
mm-hmm.
What is?" And he's like, "Well, it looks like they're gonna try to charge you with conspiracy, and that can be a mandatory minimum of 5 years, or maybe even 15 years." He's like, "I'm just sorting through this all right now," and I was like, "Wait a minute, what? What are you talking about? Maybe five, maybe." I was like, "I've never been in trouble before, and I promise I won't do this ever again. Just,
Right, right.
this is wrong. This is a bad idea. I made bad choices." And he's like,
Don't
"Yeah,
you think
you're."
that's, Corbin, one of the scarier things is that when you start getting and walking down this path and you start talking to the attorney and they start stacking, uh, like in my world, a wire fraud or mail fraud, anything you ever mailed or anything you ever wired, that's one charge, but they can charge you however many times they want to, of how many, you probably did that for 20 years, mailed out something. So they could give you, each one of those is a 20-year minimum. All of a sudden, you're looking at hundreds of years, and you're thinking, my God, this is, this is, this can't get any worse. This looks like overwhelmingly hopeless.
It is like, say I beat half of the charges, and they still have the other
Yeah,
half of the charge.
that gives you 20 years. Yeah,
You almost think to yourself, "No, this isn't how it really is. No way, this is how it really is."
yeah,
But that's how they. Like I've heard you say before on some of your other interviews, that's how they have what, a 97% conviction
yeah,
rate, and yeah,
yeah. It's if you're indicted, 97% of the people plead because they're looking at the option that lends itself to, if you lose, you're going to be in for life.
yeah.
Um, so Corbin, you get the attorney, you start talking. What's the time period here of when you uh, basically get your charges to deciding, am I going to fight this? Am I going to plea? What time period were you dealing with?
Immediately, I wanted to fight it,
Yeah.
thinking that I had a chance.
Hmm.
Um, and there was a good 6 months where we kept delaying the actual going to court. And then and then my attorney, who I was paying for, he kept kind of telling me, "Look, we got to go do this. I mean, sooner or later, you can't just keep getting continuances."
Yeah.
And they're basically, here's your, they give you that scale of this equals this and this equals this, and so this is what you're going to get. I said, "Well, what do you mean? Like, that's it? Like, there's no, like, this is, I fit into a scale, and so now I'm going to go away for it." And he's like, "Well, that's how it works in the federal system. So let's go do it." And I said, kind of like, "Let's go get a hamburger. Let's go put you in prison."
Yeah.
But I really did. I delayed it out because I ended up switching attorneys, and
Hmm.
that got me another delay because I thought maybe another attorney would have a better plan of action. And
Yeah.
so, but he kind of didn't. He did a little bit better, but I mean, I still got and I still went to prison. So, but I was out of prison for over a year before I actually pleaded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you finally, they throw you a plea bargain. What was your plea bargain?
They offered me, well, they wanted me to plead to 25 years to start
Okay.
with. And that's where the other attorney, the second attorney, I believe actually did a good job. He's like, look, he did the whole, he's never, I think they got a safety valve, where he's a first time offender and he's nonviolent. And so I probably would have got less time, but I had a gun. And so there was no way they can get around the gun charge, was an automatic 5 years. And then they pleaded me down to conspiracy to distribute cocaine. And that actually only stacked with the other charge was only 2.5 years. So I got
Okay.
7.5 years, 90 months is what it ended up being.
It's a
60
long
months
time.
and 30 months. Yes.
So you go in, what's the night like? What's your night before pleading like? Is that a restless night, or is that a night where you feel like I'm relieved that I've come to a decision?
Well, funny enough, I got sleep. I don't know how. I mean, it may have only been a handful of hours, but I really did get some sleep. Um, I it was not a healthy 24 hours beforehand. It was a
Yeah.
sad time. Uh, but I spent time with my girlfriend, who was supportive up to that point. Um, and I and her and I were very physical those last couple of nights because we knew that and
That
I
was
knew if
it.
I'm going away, I know what happens when you go to prison. There's no, if you like females, that's the wrong place to be.
Right.
And so there's that. But it was completely and horribly sad. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally sad. Like, it's the
Mhm.
worst of the, that the next whatever is going to be where you don't want to be. And you
Mhm.
don't know what, and you really don't know what it's going to be like. You just know you've got to go do it. And there's really not a feeling. I don't think, Corbin, can't really think back to any feeling I've ever had like that, where you have to do it. It's going to be scary because it's a, fear of the unknown. Nobody likes fear of the unknown, but when you're dealing with fear of the unknown, going into a federal prison, there's an awful lot that kicks into your mind and takes over your
Yeah.
mind for a while.
The one thing I was most worried about is not the extreme things like getting beat up or the stuff you see in movies. It was
Yeah.
just being treated horribly every day. Like say I was getting extorted
Hmm.
or not getting my food taken away from me at the chow hall or not being able to get along with anybody, things like that. Because um, if I'm going to get beat up, I'm going to get beat up. Like I just kind of accept
Yeah.
that. If that's really what's going to happen, that's going to happen. But I mean, I know that the day to day of 90 months, you got to be able to get by, and your mental health has to be acute, or else
Yeah.
you're going to turn into mush, and you're going to end up being a product of your environment. And so that's what worried me the most.
Well, so 7.5 years. How long did you have to wait to get the letter to tell you where you were going?
I never did.
You
They
never
took.
did.
Okay, so what happened was I went to a hearing, and I
Okay.
thought that after that hearing I would leave and go back and then wait for the letter, get
Right.
sentenced, wait for the letter, but they took me at that point.
That had to have been a surprise.
I mean, nothing was. Yes, it was, but at some point, nothing's a surprise anymore. You think that you're going to be treated fairly, or you think that you're going to, anything. So it was disappointing, but I wasn't completely surprised.
Where did you go? So that's everybody's fear. I mean, as we're talking about this, Corbin, that's
Mhm.
everybody's fear going into the hearing. And they say, well, the option is they're going to either let you go out of the hearing after they sentence you, and then you'll be able to have a couple of months with your family to sit, everything up, to get gone,
Mhm.
or they will handcuff you immediately and you'll be taken away.
In all honesty, for the year before I went to prison, I kind of tried to start getting my things in order, my life in order, because I was scared they were going to take me away at any point in time. They never
Yeah.
said they were going to do that, but I was just nervous, and I was a wreck anyway. So
Yeah. Uh, did you have any problem, like, because you said you were taking drugs along the way? Because you were in that time period, was that a way for you to kind of wean yourself out of that, or
it
that whole
was, and that's a
period?
good. It's a good thing I read about in my book. There's a good chapter about how I finally just kick it. kick the habit, kick the disgust of being on drugs, you know.
Mhm.
And it's more, it wasn't AA meetings or NA meetings or stuff like that. It was just finally the sheer will. And it's explained in detail in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I won't explain it right now, but I call it the 15-minute plan. And it's not I call it how to kick a habit in 15 minutes. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did they take you when? So you got handcuffed and taken out of the hearing. Where did you end
Yep.
up from there?
After the holding cell in downtown, I was where they take me to Osceola, Missouri,
Okay.
St. Clair County, which was, man, I mean, you're locked in a small room. You're locked in a small room the size of a bathroom all day and let out into a day room the size of an apartment living room to eat. And then you're let out in a cage the size of a garage.
Hmm.
You're not outside, just in a basement for rec. And so I was there for 7 months. I didn't see the outside for that long. And you're just waiting to go. Yeah.
So how do you find out, or what? They just come and get you one day when you're there and say we're taking you away.
You kind of get to know the process, how you see other guys come and go. And so you know that you're going to be there for a certain amount of time. And they say anywhere between 6 and 9 months, you're going to be there. Then you're going to go on to the next spot. And then you're going to finally get it, I get what should have been like your letter, or where you're going to be, where they're going to ship you to permanently. After going through several places, other holding facilities, I was sent to a permanent spot in Forest City, Arkansas, which is near Memphis. And so that's where I spent the first little bit of chunk, about a year of my time, after being through several different places before that. And then
What was that experience like there?
Forest City is exactly what you can imagine a big institutional prison being like, huge. I mean, hundreds of acres, probably thousands of acres, really, and just razor wire everywhere. And there's different buildings, and some's a max, part of it's a medium, part of it's a low. They even had a little camp outside the fence there, but there's razor wires and like little walkways going everywhere. And so it's
Mm.
just
So were you in a low?
that was a low, yes. And
So you might explain, because I know a lot of the people don't know, the big difference between like the camp and the low and the medium and the max is those scheduled moves. So is that
mhm.
something, was a scheduled move as every hour on the hours? Am I correct about that?
At the top of the hour, they'll say there's a 10-minute move. Now is open. The yard is open for a 10-minute move. And then so you can go to work out, you can go to the library, you can go to a job assignment. If you happen to have a job assignment, you can go get commissary. If the commissary happens to be open, you can go to the religious services if they're open, stuff
Hmm.
like that. And so, yeah, there's a handful of places you can be. And then once you get to your spot, you stay there until the next move, and then you
Right.
can move back. And that's the epitome of institutional living. If you have someone tell you every hour of the day, hey, you can move now, and then they tell you to stop, and then they tell you, hey, you can move now, and then you could stop. And then you do that for years. I knew guys that had been at that place for over a decade, and that's just how they
Yeah.
lived. I mean, I don't that it was incredible.
So you were there for about a year,
Mhm.
uh, or did you request a move, or did you get moved?
I certainly requested a move. I met with the counselor, the case manager, and you see where your points are at. Your points kind of dictate where you are in the security level range, whether you're at a high, a medium, a low, or a
Hmm.
camp. And so I was on the verge of being able to get my points lower enough to be at a camp. And so she told me to do a couple things, take a couple classes, make sure I don't get in trouble. And if I did so, that she would put my paperwork in to get moved to a camp. And when I finally did all those things, and she told me she put the paperwork in, I was pretty excited. I told her I wanted to go to Leavenworth. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew it was close to Kansas City. I didn't care about anything else. And so, and I knew there was a camp there. And so I put the paperwork in. It took a handful of months for that to happen. And then I was moved again. But that's when and I've heard you talk about it before to some other people, maybe James. That's when part of the diesel therapy
Yeah.
situation came into play, where you're moved. When I was finally moved from there, you move from place to place. And sometimes you stay at a place for a day, a week, a month, until you finally get to where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, and I think that's another mind torture method of, you're worried because you're being moved, that you're hoping your hope is you're getting moved to the place you want to be, or they're requested. But there's so many stories of people who get moved around for a long time, and they don't get to where they plan on being. They just move. And how long did that take for you to get to Leavenworth?
Oh, it really only took from that point handful of months. I can't recall exactly. I'll call
Yeah.
it 3 months, but I equate it to like what you're saying. It's like a letter getting stuck in the side of a letter carrier's bag.
Yeah.
He's delivering the mail every day, but you're just like there, and you don't know whether he's going to pull you out ever or not. And so, but my first 18 months, I was in 9 institutions.
That's so incredible.
I happened to be in Forest City for 9 months, so that was a good chunk of time. But all the other places move.
Well, and I tell you, Corbin, the thing about that is that, you hear people talk that have been in prison, and one of the things that they try to do is get set up. It sounds really weird, but you try to get your life set up that this is going to be my life for 3 years, 6 years, 10 years, or whatever. But you want to get some kind of like foundation. I know it sounds odd, but you're trying to get, okay, this is what I do, and this is how I'm going to live, and this is my space, and this is how I'm going to get. And by moving all those times, I can't imagine how you felt constantly getting into a new environment, new people, new places to sit. That's always a big deal in prison. Where do I sit? What was that like for you to travel that many different places and so many different people?
No, you're right.
Short amount of time.
You want something substantial to grasp onto, just to make you feel safe and make you feel like, okay, I can do this right now. And so, you quickly figure out everywhere you go, you got to find your people, and you just kind of gravitate towards them. Sometimes they'll gravitate towards you, and they'll say, like you've heard, hey, you look new, or you just kind of like, if you've been a couple places, you just kind of say, you learn what to say. You talk to people and say, hey, here's where I was at. I just got here. What's going on here? You ask general questions. What time's chow? When they do count? Hey, when we lock down at night? Hey, you guys got commissary? You just ask general questions, even if you don't even care what the answer is. You just got to start probing a little bit just to get some feedback.
Yeah, get the conversation going. And then, like I always say, whether you're in prison or out of prison, it's always good to look at who's getting it.
Who's
getting it done right.
He looks like he knows. Yeah.
So that's a good thing. So your first day at Leavenworth, what was that like?
Cool. As cool as it could be in prison, because I've been in all these other places, and it was easiest. I mean, I was actually, when you get dropped off at the house up top, the big house, and you take that van ride down to the camp, which is like an old school or whatever that is.
Little rundown school. Rundown elementary school is kind of what it looks like.
Little crappy, horrible place in disarray. But it was good because it just seemed open, and people were walking around. The air seemed lighter than anywhere else I'd been. I know it's not for people that hadn't been anywhere else and they get there, because it is depressing there too. And it certainly wasn't fun, and certainly is not nice. But for me, it was a breath of fresh air. It really, I mean, it's weird to hear me say that, but it really was.
Well, no, I oddly enough, I went to St. Louis for 6 days, and I was in a county jail, and it felt like 6 years. And I came back to Leavenworth and thought, that whole thing with the pod and lights and people screaming at night and all that stuff. It was just a bizarre, unsettling feeling, like you'd finally hit the dirt rock bottom of wherever you were going to be in your life. But I remember you, Corbin, at Leavenworth. You were a guy that kind of I remember you from, I worked at the food warehouse, and you were working in the garden. And when I say garden, this is like, how many acres do you think that was?
Well, 14 acres of hand hoed garden. Yeah.
Hand done. And you and I kind of walked the same way every day. You'd go off to the garden. I went up to the food warehouse, and, you were kind of the guy that did that stuff, and nobody really wanted to do that. That was a lot of labor. I weighed that stuff that you brought up to the food warehouse every summer, and it was always over 100,000 pounds of stuff that you had grown.
Mm-hmm.
What was that one of your strategies in prison, that you were going to just gut it out and do labor and busy yourself to wear yourself out?
Heck yeah. I wanted to be in good shape.
Yeah.
And that was a way to get in shape and spend time outside the fence, out in the field. I knew that, and
Might explain that, Corbin. Outside the fence, what
okay.
was that?
So it's right outside the small fence that was around our beat up schoolhouse that we lived in, our dorm, the camp. It was 14 acres. It was behind the main prison. It was on the prison grounds, but it was outside everything else. So you had a sense of freedom out there. It was
Yeah.
as nice as you could get in that place. And so what I liked about the garden though is that you could, when I found out that we donated the food was donated to homeless shelters, to churches, to harvesters. And when I found out that's what we did with the food, I thought, what better way for me to do something bigger than myself in this place? Because for the longest time, I had just been, well, I'm going to do push-ups, I'm going to read, and I'm going to just try to survive. And now I found a way, this isn't just surviving. I find a way to thrive. Like, even though I might be suffering, I could help somebody out there. And so if I knew that we were giving a bunch of tomatoes to people really appreciate them, and that's a really cool thing. And so, but it was a lot of work, and it was intense and hot and insufferable, but it was a good way to stay away from the riffraff inside. And yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was always, that was my take, is that it made you, I always was looking for things to continue to make me feel like me.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you don't lose yourself. You continually try to feel like you. And to me, when you got those vegetables to me, I didn't do the hard work that you did in the garden. But what I liked is those guys backed up to that big loading dock, and I loaded their trucks. But it also gave me a little bit of a freedom to talk to people that weren't in prison. And that was kind of unique. The guy that was taking it to the charity, you got to have a little bit of a conversation. It made you feel like, strangely enough, those are the things you crave, to talk to people who aren't in prison, that are just, coming by to pick stuff up. Makes it feel a little bit more normal.
We call those real world encounters.
Yeah, real world encounters. Exactly.
Well, you were part of it though. If you're sitting there and you got to realize where the food was going, you kind of saw the end product. It gave you a sense of pride and gave you a feeling of worth in a place where you don't really feel worth of anything.
So when, the days and there's days that I have that they're like, it's a rainy day, a cloudy day. I feel somehow it brings there's certain things that bring me back to that feel, that Leavenworth feel. Hard days in prison. What were your strategies with hard days?
Well, I used the same strategy that I used to get off drugs in hard days. And my 15-minute plan in one sentence, basically, that's just, how do I get through the next 15 minutes? And so if you can get through the next 15 minutes, then you'll figure out how to get through the next 15 minutes. I concentrated on learning. I always like to learn about stuff I don't know about. And so I would find books to learn. And then I'd also learned how to meditate better. I'm still not very good at it, but as long as you practice, you do that. And I liked spirituality. I wouldn't say I'm religious, because I went to church and stuff, but I really got into, like, besides Christianity, Buddhism and Hinduism, and just reading Stephen Hawking and all these different things. I just wanted to ingest it all. And so when I felt like I was doing all that, all of a sudden, 15 minutes went by, and I guess I can get through another 15 minutes.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good strategy.
Yeah. That and writing. I like to write, and I knew I wanted to do something one day that would help other people, because I knew in my heart, I didn't ever feel like I was a bad person. I just felt like I made bad choices. And so I want other people to know that, hey, you can go to college and you can still be somewhat successful, and you can still make a bunch of bad choices, and you can still move past it and make a difference.
Well, I think that's the thing about whether you've gone to prison or you've made mistakes in your life. The mistake is the mistake. It doesn't define you. It should make you wiser. And it's like Jack Nicklaus says, when he makes a bad shot, he doesn't want to make the same bad shot right the second time right again. So that's trying to use it. I think you've done an excellent job, Corbin, of taking. I'm promoting your book again, because your book is about choices. Your book's about overcoming. Your book's about dealing with determination, really, and persistency, and sticking with getting through it, and taking the next step, taking action. Those are things that those are life choices, and those are things that if you feel like you're stuck, the best thing to do on that is to move, take action with it, and that's what you've done. I mean, I can feel it when I read your book, but I also was around you in the prison environment, and that's what you were also doing. You just didn't write about it; you did it.
Yeah, it's all about taking action. Correct. And that's why I liked using that term on to the next thing. There was a handful of us that just started saying that, John Moore
Yeah.
and a couple of the Paul Hartfield, you probably remember
Yep.
some people like
Yep.
that. We all, and several others, we always used to say that to each other. Oh, on to the next
On
thing,
to the next thing.
whatever that is, it's got to get to it. And so it kept us moving.
So as you got into the world of Leavenworth, what how did you, there's all kinds of different things. Like you said, you got involved with the garden. What other things did you do to keep yourself being Corbin and Leavenworth?
I liked the garden. It took up a lot of time and it took a lot of effort. So that was good. And then I working out, whether, I'm not a guy who cared about getting big and beefy or whatever, but I like to work out. I want my heart to be healthy. I wanted to stay young for as long as possible. So working out, whatever that was. I started playing guitar more. The churches liked guys to play music during the services. So I got into that a little bit, and that grew into something pretty cool. I started playing guitar when I got out of prison a little bit, some of the little bars in this college town that I live in.
Mhm.
So those things. And then, once football season starts, you go watch football games with guys. That's a good way to spend chunks of time, and
Yeah.
you just find things to do. If you want to buy some stuff off the commissary and throw, quote, a party one night where you're cooking beans and eating chips
Uh-huh.
off a table,
Yep.
eating
Yep.
table, just things like that, just things that you never thought you'd get involved in.
So as you got closer to the point of getting out, what was how was your mind thinking at that time?
You know what? I was super nervous, but I was prepared because I knew that I was going to go out. I know I'm ambitious. And so I knew I was going to go out and just make the right steps and just do everything appropriately. And then I also realized that I valued health and money. I'm sorry, health and time way more than money.
Yeah.
Before I always valued money and
Yeah.
and
You
and other
flipped it.
people's favor. Yeah, I flipped it. So I knew that my time was important to me, and whatever I spent my time doing I was going to do it to the best of my ability. So I mean, I was nervous, but I was, you're super excited when that's going
Sure.
on.
Sure.
I made sure I didn't, and I know you've probably talked about this to other guys. I made sure I didn't talk about it to other guys for months
Yeah.
before I was leaving because they might have had years to do and they don't want to hear me. They don't want to hear about
No.
me talking about, well, I got 2 months left and I'm going to go do this. They don't care. And
No.
so I certainly kept it to myself unless somebody asked. But
Yeah. If you got somebody that you're close to and you can talk to about it, of course, but just to broadcast it, those guys were never very popular.
no, not at all. Because I remember when I had 3 or 4 years left, and I heard guys talking about getting ready to go out and get McDonald's. I was like, "Come on,
Yeah.
man."
Yeah. 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 No. Well, so you get out.
Mhm.
So, I mean, tell me the day you got out. What was that
So the
like?
day, weirdly, we got locked down the morning I was supposed to get out. I can't remember why, and
That's never good. A lockdown.
yeah, and so I was ready to go, and
Yeah.
Charlie Walker, you might remember him.
Yeah. He lived right across the hallway from me.
He was my bunkie at the time, and he was like, "Bunkie, it's time for you to go. Just go out there." And I was like, "We're locked down." He's like,
Yeah.
"It doesn't matter. You're getting out." And I was like, "You're still feverish, and like I don't want to do anything wrong." So I had my little bags of just a handful of things I was taking with me. I got rid of almost everything,
Yeah.
before you go. And I could see from my window out in the parking lot, my ride out there, my mom, my
Mhm.
grandma, my brother, my sister, all sitting in there. And they kind of got out of the car. They'd walk around a little bit and then they'd get back in the car. They were looking at their watch and an hour went by before I was supposed to get out at 9. And I think by
Mhm.
10, I still hadn't got out. And I'm thinking, well, now they're going to do lunch or count or who
Yeah.
knows. And
Yeah.
then, but Sooner or
I
later, a
can't
guy
imagine though the
yeah,
anticipation of being in a lockdown and thinking, "Hey, I'm supposed to be out of here."
yeah, it was like, of course, this is what
Yeah.
happens with damn guy. But I finally did get out. The guard came, pulled me out, checked me out of that place. Honestly, leaving was a blur. I mean, I
Hmm.
know I left and I know I walked out the door, but I never once looked back. I don't, I'll remember that place forever. I never once looked back and tried to do a goodbye or see a guy, or I just
Hmm.
looked forward, looked at my family. They got out of the car. They were crying. They sped towards me. We got in
Yeah.
the car. My mom was in the back seat ringing a cowbell or something. And I was like, this is great. And my brother plays some cool Dave Matthews music or something. And
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. They handed me some clothes that I wanted. I wanted blue pants. I wanted
Yeah.
white shoes. I wanted a
Yeah.
colorful shirt, anything that's not
Yeah.
khaki.
Not
Uh,
khaki.
and we got out of there. I didn't know if I honestly didn't know if I was going home or I was going to home or, to a halfway house. I ended up
Yeah.
going to a halfway house. They took me to Topeka. I stayed at
Hmm.
a halfway house there, but yeah, it was. Oh, and they were like, "We're so sorry. We have to drop you off at this halfway house. We wish you could come home with us." And I thought, this is
Yeah.
great. This is
Yeah.
a-okay.
Yeah. So you get through the halfway house. How do you get back into society? How does it feel being back into society?
It feels wonderful. I've had a couple hiccups along the way, but to get back into society, I started working in a lumber yard right away in
Okay.
Emporia, Kansas. So
Okay.
I moved from Topeka to Emporia. I have a friend who owns a lumber yard there, and my mom lived there, and so that's
Yeah.
how I started. I worked my first year out of prison at that lumber yard, and it was hard work, and I loved every minute of it. I made $10 an hour, and I don't care. It was great. It
Yeah.
was
Just
absolutely
work.
incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
I made sure I did everything right. I got my driver's license immediately. I went to all the appointments I was supposed to go to. I was not messing anything up, and I was a model citizen. Like that was my new goal. But I knew I valued time, and I knew I didn't want to work at a lumber yard forever, and I wanted to do something meaningful. So I immediately started writing that book when I got out. When I had time on
Was
my
it
hands.
always on your mind, Corbin, to write the
Yeah,
book?
it
Okay.
was, and I wrote a lot in prison, but it was just
Hmm.
notes,
Hmm.
and I scoured through things, and I didn't go out, I didn't do anything, I just wrote, and I went to work, and funny enough, I ended up getting a job at a local newspaper in Emporia, and so
Wow.
I thought this is the right jumping point.
Yeah.
This is how things are supposed to go. It's journalism, and so I worked there, and then all of a sudden that pandemic hit, and that was so, and that changed everything for everybody.
Sure.
No matter your opinion on what's going on with it, it happened. So um, the world's been kind of difficult to navigate since then. But since then, I don't work at the newspaper, but I published 2 books since the pandemic hit, and then this audio book's about ready to come out. But I published a book for my dad. I just want to mention it real quick
Yeah.
because it's kind of a lot what I believe in now. He's a surgeon and a stem cell doctor up in New York City, and he believes in longevity of life. He doesn't believe in prescribing pills to help you, to fix remedies. He's all about taking care of your body, taking your own health into your own hands. And it fit right in with what happened when the coronavirus came around. Take your own health into your own hands. Don't wait for a vaccine. Don't worry about a mask. It's take care. So we published a book called Survival on an Island. It's about his experience uh, with the pandemic in New York City, where it was bad when it first happened.
Yeah.
And we published that last year, about 1 year ago, almost to date. And then I published my book. So I just really have been concentrating on those, figuring out how that works, because I'd
Hmm.
never done that before. And as you know, that there's a lot of intricacies of trying to figure out how to write it, market it, get it edited, get it
All
published,
that.
all
Yeah.
the things.
Well,
But
so and I the other part of it, you created Blue Press Media, which is your brainchild, right?
right, yeah, Blue Press Media is the publishing company I use to publish these 2 books. But I also am using it because I want to promote mental, spiritual, and physical health. Is just like
Okay.
the best way to go forward in life. If you have all those things in line. And mental health is a big issue right now. You hear Simone Biles and Kevin Love and all these people talking about mental health, and that's important. I think that might have been what added to my struggles in life. Also, physical health is to keep you healthy, and then just all those things. So besides the books, I want to use it to start doing speaking engagements, market helping other companies doing marketing.
Yeah.
Um,
You'd be really good at speaking. I mean, I think people would love to hear your story, but you have a unique way of telling your story too.
I have my next speaking engagement. It's hard to get them right now because
Oh yeah, I
The
know.
weirdness.
The
But
the whole
I am going down
pandemic
to,
thing.
I'll be down in Fort Worth in a couple weeks, speaking to middle school and also a high school down there.
Cool.
So,
Very cool, Corbin.
mhm.
So what else that I haven't asked you, Corbin, that we need to know to part with the audience?
Well, I guess the one thing I want to impart on people is that it's just important to appreciate the now in life.
Hmm.
I mentioned before to appreciate time and health, but also to appreciate the now. We can't worry about what happened in the past. You can't change the way your past has been. I can't change the way mine has been. You can't change the future. You can plan for the future, but the future is going to happen, and you just need to live in the right now. And the more you can appreciate the right now, the better. And so that's why I've kind of planned my life around that. Now I don't have a 9 to 5 job anymore. I do 4 or 5 different things to make money, and I'm making
Yeah.
money at all of them. But I'm doing them because I like doing those things. But I can also, if I want to take a break in the middle of the day and go to the gym or read a
Hmm.
book for an hour, I make sure that I plan my life around being able to do that. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's that everybody's built for that, but that's what I've done for myself. So,
Well, and I think that goes back to what you just said. Your time is really important, and I think hopefully that's something that neither one of us lose from our experiences, that appreciation of having time and having your health and having your family and uh, those things that are important to you. I think you come at it from a little bit different perspective of how you narrow focus in on that. But I also think people just are going through tough times. It's important to focus back in on what makes you happy, what are you passionate about, what fills you up, and if you're not doing those things, you need to figure out a way to get there.
nope, well said. And if the last 18 months hasn't impressed that on you, then it should have. I mean,
Yeah,
the time and what you want to do in life. Don't wait a year to go on that vacation or go
yeah,
get that car. Or do what makes you happy for sure.
do it. Corbin, thanks so much for being the guest here today on Nightmare Success In and Out. Everybody, I appreciate the listening, the following, the likes, subscribing, all that. It's been great. And Corbin, thank
Mhm.
you so much for being here today.
Brent, thank you. I appreciate the time.
All right, man.
All right, take care now.